Each of us carries a story. This story may be filled with joy, with laughter, or it may be filled with pain, with losses. All of these parts make up what our story is, the story of our life. What is your story? Hello, this is Ligia Huben. Welcome to my channel, to my podcast, if this is the first time that we are connecting. This is very special to have you here because in this episode, what I want to do is to talk about storytelling. Yes, we hear about storytelling all over because people are sharing their stories and we pay attention, we listen because that's what touches us. And that's why I want to ask you in this moment, what is your story? Instead of listening to other people's stories, go and connect with yours. What is it? What narrative are you saying to yourself? Because you know what? We create narratives. Something happened to us, and then we create a narrative depending on how we say it. And we have so many stories because we have so many transitions in life. Maybe the story you are saying to yourself now has to do with the loss of a loved one, has to do with a divorce, emptiness, loss of a job, aging, any of those transitions. And it depends on how you are filtering the story in your head because the event happened. What is that you are repeating? Something that I want for you to do is this, because this can help you. First, write the narrative, the story that you are saying to yourself. Maybe you are just repeating that in your head over and over and over. I hear that from clients when they tell me, Ligia, that story is always in my mind and I'm playing that all over and over. Sometimes they say the story as an image, like a film, like a movie, and sometimes they go there. Is that happening to you? That happens, that's natural, that's okay. What you want to do is to sit down, to write your story, and then after you do that, you can create another story. And now that I'm saying this to you, I want to tell you that below this video, you'll find a link where you can download a PDF where I'm giving you like prompts that you can create your story to help you create a story. Because sometimes people say, I don't know how to start saying my story. Okay, so that's the first step. The narrative of the story you have that happened to you. Then you can create the new story because that's what happened. In our lives, our story is based and is made of things that happen to us and then also of the steps we take, the choices we make, because we are always making choices, making decisions. And I hear about this a lot when I run my groups because I have a program that is an 8 weeks, it's an 8-week program called Transforming Grief and Loss. And the way I do it is besides, teaching them and talking about grief, about losses and all that, what we do is besides having like a support group where everybody shares, I like to put them in different groups so they can share among them. And I have come to realize that when we can do that with few people instead of the big group, people share more. And people love to share their stories. And that's all about storytelling. And the thing is that's why support groups and these groups work beautifully, because when we are sharing our stories to our family, to friends, maybe they say, it's about time that you stop talking about your story because you are being repetitive. the thing is that that's healing. When we experience a loss and we talk about our story, that is healing. That's why I am inviting you to write the narrative, to put it on paper. I want to share with you 3 steps to write your narrative with storytelling. The first step is to choose the defining moment. And this is when, you pick one specific moment in your life. When we're talking about grief, it could be the loss of a loved one. Then you start with that. You don't need the whole story. Just a scene that carries meaning. For example, you may want to say, the day I received the news of my father's death, I was by myself at home, something like that. Step number 2, show the emotion and the conflict, because there are some conflicts, and I'll tell you what that means. When we talk about show the emotion, describe what you felt and what you thought in that moment. That is so important. Use sensory details. You may describe how cold you felt the floor, how your heart, was pounding, your chest was heavy, and then you highlight the conflict. You may have gotten into a struggle, between not accepting, not wanting to accept what happened, and then realizing that that was going on in your life, something that you could not escape. That may be, a conflict there. Okay? And now, step number 3, share the meaning and the transformation on your narrative, because you don't want to end only with pain. You want to reveal the insight, the meaning. What did you learn about yourself? Because with grief, that happens. We learn so much about ourselves. And then the transformation that time brought. And you know what? It can be something small, such as you allowed yourself to cry. Or it may be profound. Turn your grief into your life's mission. When you do that, you finish that narrative in another space, from the suffering space into something that gives you meaning and transformation. So I want just to recap what these 3 steps are. Number 1, defining moment, where your story begins. Number 2, emotion and conflict, how it felt and what you lived through. And number 3, meaning and transformation, what you found beyond the pain. Actually, let me share this with you. Many years ago, my mom told me to write the story about my father's death. I lost my dad when I was 12, and she wanted me to write a book about his life. And I started writing, but what happened was that I wanted to share my story. And that's when I wrote the book, Transform Your Loss, Your Guide to Strength and Hope, because I had the need to share my story. And the beauty is that that book has 60 real stories of people. Half of them are the story of the loss of a loved one, but has the other types of losses, because what I wanted was to give the reader the opportunity to share with other people through their stories. And that showed me how amazing that people want to share their stories. And I remember that for that book, I created like a questionnaire and I sent it out. So people filled it out, and then I created the stories. I put them all together. And now, when we are talking about your story, then what is the narrative you are going to write from now on? Because this is the narrative of what happened. Now, what is the narrative from this moment to how you continue your life? Because the way you write your story is going to be based on the decisions you make. And I want to share something with you, something very special that happened not too long ago, an experience I had with a client. He experienced a very deep loss, a significant loss. And he told me that despite the pain that we may experience with a loss, we can always make choices. We can always decide to do something that makes us feel better. When he said that, it really touched my heart. I got very emotional, actually, when he said it, because coming from that story, he said, well, we can always do something to feel better. And this reminded me of Viktor Frankl with his book, Man's Search of Meaning, when he talks about the prisoners in the Nazi concentration camps that were able to find meaning in their suffering. That's amazing when we hear about these stories of people that are able to find meaning in what happened to them, that they create their stories. With this message, I hope that you are inspired to create your story, because we know, yes, we write that narrative of the story that happened to us, and now we write a narrative of how we continue, finding purpose, finding meaning. I hope this message has resonated with you. And if it did, I would greatly appreciate if you subscribe to the channel, if you like this episode, and if you share it with others. Because maybe that person that you share this message has been stuck in their narrative of suffering. And when they hear this, they can write a new narrative with purpose and meaning. Until next time, from my heart to yours.